Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1164B, and today's date is December 28th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, We Might See Multiple Events in the Month of January 2017. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like Hillary Clinton is not off the hook just yet, because a federal appeals court for the District of Columbia, well, they breathed new life into the Hillary email gate scandal. The case was filed by watchdog group Judicial Watch, and cause of action seeking to force the State Department to instruct the Department of Justice to file a federal records suit to recover Hillary's missing emails. Well, a lower court had previously ruled that the State Department's efforts to recover Hillary emails, they were sufficient enough and threw the case out the door. But D.C. Circuit Judge Stephen Williams, a Ronald Reagan appointee, well, he had a little bit of a different view. And we see that he looked at this and said, well, maybe there is something here. The three-judge appeals court panel on Tuesday said that the state had not done enough. Even though those efforts bore some fruit, the department has not explained why shaking the tree harder by following the statutory mandate to seek action by the Attorney General might not bear more still. D.C. Circuit Judge Stephen Williams, a Ronald Reagan appointee, wrote in the court's opinion, "It is therefore abundantly clear that in terms of assuring government recovery of emails, appellants have not been given everything they asked for." So we can see right now that Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton praised the ruling, saying that it is now up to the Trump administration to determine whether they would like to finally enforce the rule of law and try to retrieve all the emails from Clinton and her aides. And the ball right now is in Trump's court. He can hand this over to the Attorney General and let the Attorney General run with this. Well, we'll have to wait and see how this turns out. Now, we understand that the establishment, the elite, the central banks, Obama, they are trying to shut down the alternative media. Anything outside of their control, they want it completely shut down. This is why they came up with the fake news. The whole fake news idea that if it's not coming from the corporate media, it's all fake, and we have to have fact-checking individuals, websites, companies to do the research to make sure that these stories are real. And Facebook said, okay, we're going to create this algorithm. We're going to use different websites to fact check. And it looks like Facebook's algorithm, their fake news system, went a little haywire because Facebook activated a false safety check for an explosion in the city of Bangkok, Thailand, after its algorithm was fooled by trending posts apparently related to the 2015 deadly bombing at the Erewhon Shrine. A series of posts suggesting that there was an explosion in the city triggered the safety check on December 26 around 9 p.m. local time. And it was asking users in Thailand to mark themselves safe. Well, there was no media sources to back this up. There was no information to back any of this up. And this was a real story. And we come to find out that no, it wasn't. It was completely fake. And this brings up a lot of questions about how these systems are going to be run. Because we know that the sites like Snopes, PolitiFact, and all the rest, well, they're run by the CIA. They're funded by Soros. They're funded by Gates. And they're all interconnected. And basically what's happening right now is they're setting up what's called a Ministry of Truth. These are the facts that we want you to believe. And I always go back to everything that we've seen in the past, because if the alternative media was out there, or anyone out there writing an article about Obamacare, for instance, the Affordable Care Act, which we know is not affordable, where people were writing during that time period, because I remember reading the articles, that you're going to lose your doctor. You will not be able to keep your doctor. Now, of course, Obama came out and made a speech saying you will be able to keep your doctor. Well, his story, because he said it, well, that was the fact. And the other story that said you were going to lose your doctor, well, that would have been fake news. But actually, it's the opposite. When Obama came out and said premiums are going to be very low, everyone's going to be able to afford this. Well, we looked at it. There were articles written saying that no, premiums are going to rise. Companies are going to cut down on full-time positions and make them part-time. Now again, if we looked at these two stories at that time, the government story would have been fact, and these other stories would have been fake. But again, it was the other way around. In 2011, when the government came out and said, we are not backing the moderate rebels, we're not funding them, we have nothing to do with these individuals. Turns out that yes, they did. They were supplying them arms. They were funding them. Actually, it wasn't the moderate rebels. It was Al-Qaeda at the time. And again, those individuals, like myself, who were saying that these are terrorists, these are Al-Qaeda, the United States is funding them, that would have been fake. And once again, the government would have been fact. But again, it was the other way around. Go back to 2008 and the financial crisis. The central bank told us they're not forecasting a recession in 2008 while we were in 2008. That would have been fact. The government backed it up. All those other people have said, no, we're heading towards this crash. It's going to be a disaster. That's fake news. But again, it was the other way around. So again, what is fake? What is real? The government wants you to believe that everything they say is real, but it is not. And we see this is spreading. We know that Angela Merkel, she's in her election year in 2017, she's going to be setting up her own center of defense against fake news. How interesting, during an election year. Shut down all those sites, all those people that are spewing out information that goes against what she's saying during an election year. Look, do you see the pattern here? Do you see what they're doing? They're shutting down those people who are not in agreement with the government, who might be pointing out certain things during an election year that they don't want anyone to see. This is how these individuals work. They don't want freedom of speech. They don't want democracy. They want control. They want to rule, and they don't want the people to have any type of say. That's what these individuals are really like. We see out in the UK. The UK, they were looking into voter fraud. They were looking into the voting system. And they've came up with an idea to get rid of all of it. You will have to show ID as part of their new electoral system. It's funny because throughout the world, you have to show your ID for everything. To get into a country, you have to show your passport. To get on a plane, if you stop by the police, you need to show ID. But to go vote for an individual who's going to run your country, you don't have to show any ID. Actually, this would get rid of a lot, because it would be one person, one ID, anyone else coming in. Guess what? This person already checked in. Who are you? But again, those people who manipulate elections, those people who manipulate and try to stay in power, they don't want this type of accountability. They don't like it. And they try to make everyone convinced that, oh, if we show voter ID, it's against freedoms. Well, if it's against freedoms, then we should get rid of showing ID at the airport, showing ID every time you go into an amusement park, into a stadium. We shouldn't be searched every single time, because that's the violation of our rights. So if you really want to take it that much further, look what they've done. No, showing your ID doesn't mean you're giving up your freedom to vote for someone. It shows that you gave your vote and check, yes, we have you down. Now the next person who comes in who claims to be whoever can't do it. We see out in China, China is testing their 5th generation stealth fighter. This is the newest version of the J-31, now renamed the FC-31. And it took to the air for the first time on Friday. And this is going to compete with the F-35. And by the way, the F-35 is a complete lemon. And we can see right now that China is showing off, saying, listen, we can compete with the United States. We see that the United States government, well, they are bringing in more weapons to the Syrian Kurds. And what's very interesting about this, on December 24th, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey said the United States did not provide direct military support to the Kurds whatsoever. But in the last 2 weeks alone, the U.S. weaponry was delivered 3 times to the northeastern Syria province of Hasaka. Very interesting, because that's where the Kurds are. Who are they giving these weapons to? Again, the U.S. government, central bankers, are spewing out fake news, propaganda. We see that the United States government central bankers, well, they're sending a message to Russia once again. They have shelled the Russian embassy in Damascus many times. And they're trying to provoke Russia by doing this. We see that Russia, Turkey, Iran, Syria, they got together and they came up with a ceasefire plan nationwide. The United States is not included in this. And the only thing that Turkey asked was that if we have a ceasefire and we go into peace talks, Assad cannot be in power. So it looks like that Turkey is playing both sides still, moving closer to Russia, still pushing the idea that Assad can't be in power. But the people of Syria are going to look towards Assad and they're going to say, well, wait a minute. Assad was with us since the beginning. He brought in Russia to help. We've beaten the Islamic State. Why should we remove this leader right now? It doesn't make any sense. But we can see that Russia has used Turkey, has used this situation to create a ceasefire right now, which means the United States government central bankers, well, their backs are against the wall. And we could see that more weaponry is coming into the Kurds. They want a division in Syria. That's their main plan. And we see that Obama, well, he's not going to give up. He only has a couple of weeks left as president. And we already see that Obama is set to announce economic sanctions and a covert cyber ops to hit Russia with a cyber attack. Now remember, all of this is being done without evidence. The CIA produced no evidence. Congress asked the CIA to present their evidence. They declined. Actually, when the electors said, yes, we would like an intel briefing, the CIA never followed through. So right now, there is no evidence whatsoever, because believe me, if they had it, they would have given it over. And we're going to take this one step further. How do we know there's no evidence? Well, there's a lawsuit that was filed against the CIA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They're saying that they're in violation of the Freedom of Information Act. Investigative journalist Jason Leopold and MIT PhD candidate Harvard Klein Center for Internet and Society Research affiliate Ryan Shapiro, they filed a lawsuit against these agencies. The suit is over the agency's failures to comply with Shapiro and Leopold's Freedom of Information Act requests for the records on Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. And the CIA and the other agencies refuse to give this information over. They want to know certain things. What information on Russian interference did U.S. intelligence agencies possess, and when did they possess it? How did this information differ by agency? How did analysis of this information and response proposals based upon that analysis differ by agency? And they have many, many questions. But guess what? They declined to hand this over. Why? Because it was propaganda once again. Believe me, if they had real evidence, don't you think they would have put it out and spread it out all over the place, showing exactly how Russia did this? Believe me, it would be all over the news, and they would be pushing this as hard as they possibly could have. But they didn't, because it was fake. Germany, they're out there saying that they've detained a Tunisian man that they think may have been involved in last week's truck attack. Now, we know this is a complete false flag. What I think is happening right now is they're going after any individual that Anis Amri was in contact with. Remember, he is a patsy. They want to know, what did he say to these individuals? What did he tell them? And of course, these individuals most likely will end up dead. And we've seen it happen time and time again. So the authorities right now, they're going after anyone that might have been in contact with him to cover up this entire false flag. Now, we understand come January 15th, representatives from 70 different countries, they're going to be gathering in Paris, France, for an unprecedented global conference. The stated goal of this conference is to promote a two-state solution for lasting peace in the Middle East. So what they're looking to do is have a vote about what they're going to do with Palestine and the Palestine state. Now, the UN Security Council, they passed a resolution. It was passed on last Friday, and it was one of the most significant events that we've witnessed in decades. Resolution 2334 made all Israel settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem illegal. It set the 1967 ceasefire lines as the border between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And it granted every single inch of East Jerusalem to the Palestinians. Now, we understand this January of 2017, we have Trump, which is going to be inaugurated. There's supposed to be this huge protest that's going to be occurring during this period in Washington. So we might see some riots if they can get that kicked off the ground. We might see events. We also have these countries, the representatives from these countries, all meeting in Paris, France. So right now, there is a high probability there might be some type of terrorist attack on or during what is happening in Paris. And why would there be some type of terrorist attack? Why would there be some type of an event? We know it's a false flag. It's to distract. It's maybe to postpone these representatives that are all meeting at the same place, postpone their meeting to stop what they're going to vote on. And this, as we can see, is a very high probability of happening at this point. So January, it might turn out to be the month of events. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.